this is really important that I would like to share with you now. That is, I mean, we have got a revised academic calendar. Okay, so you can see on the screen that now that the classes are increased actually, right? That I mean, we have decided that our final examination, sorry, midterm examination is going to be on 19th February, sorry, March. So here you can see that now it is actually moved to that 25 to the March 31, right? So 1 week may be increased here. So that means our midterm examination is going to be held on maybe that 26th March, right? So it was the plan was 19th, but now we are going to be give it on 26th March
On next
and
Friday, yes, sir.
not next Friday,
Which one was
not
in
next.
schedule of that?
So you can you see in the academic calendar on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So check that the midterm exam is started from March 25. Okay,
Yes, sir.
March 25. So this is the I mean update. It was before the March 18. You understand? So 1 week they have increased. I mean our final examination could finish the April 18 to that the 25, but you can see now that final examination is May 1 to 8. So 1 week actually increased, right? So that is what that I mean the exam dates also changed. So now you can see that we are having the midterm examination from March 25. So that means we are going to be after 1 week we are going to be take that the compared with the previous date. We have declared that our midterm examination is going to be 19th March. Now it is going to be on 26th March. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
So that is also going to be Friday, 26th March, and exam time maybe the 9:35 we decided, right?
Yes, sir.
So please note this that I mean we are not going to be have the exam on 19th. Rather than we are going to be midterm examination on the 26th Friday on Friday 26th March 2021. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, this was an important information as well. Just give me 1 minute. I'm coming back. Okay, so CSC 348. I think that we have done that the BIOS and CMOS, and let's today make the discussion about the microprocessor. Okay, so this is going to be really a hard work that I mean when we are going to be start that the our university physically that I mean you all may be aware about that the university is taking the initiative for actually after that the government message announcement that after Eid, right, that the university is going to be physically open. So university is taking preparation for that. And yes, I mean, this is the lab class that the CSC 348. So it is that the 2 credits lab. So, I mean, I already said to you that when we started the course, that this is the course actually it's not really possible that you are going to be go through with the online. Actually, you need a lot of practice at the lab, in the lab. So, yes, when we physically is going to be on campus, on that time we should have to be do some real hard work to recover this. I mean, that the things that we are doing here. So whatever that the experiments we are doing here, all the experiments needs to be practiced on lab. So that is the thing actually we should have to keep in our mind. Okay, let me share the file with you first. Can you see the experiment number 5?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the experiments is about the microprocessors. So in these experiments, we are going to be learn out these 5 components, as you can see that A, B, C, D, E. So the first one is that the identifying CPU characteristics and recognizing CPU socket, removing and installing that the CPU on that the CPU socket, and information about that the I mean how to make that the CPU cool, right? So there are cooling system, different cooling systems are there. So we are going to be learn about them, and we have to check that cooling system that actually we are using into our computer system. Usually that I mean in the desktop computer, normal desktop computer, we are using that the heat sink and fan. The exploring the CPU jet, CPU specification with the CPU jet. So this is that I mean the software name I have already said to you that you should have to install into your computer system. With that, actually, we can get some valuable information um, about our own PC. Okay. So it started that the identifying the CPU characteristics. So we say that learning objective in this lab, you'll practice identifying the CPUs and CPU fan components. At the this end of this lab, you'll be able to recognize the different kinds of CPUs, recognize the different CPU fan attachments, identify the basic specifications of different classes of CPUs. So you already so what are the requirement actually, that what are the things actually you need, not so many things, but some of the different things we use in the lab to do this. So it is just trying to tell us some introduction about that the CPU's technology, that staying on the top of the many developments in CPU technology can be challenging. However, it is not just plug any CPU into any motherboard and expect it to work. Necessary to match the right CPU to the right motherboard. To accomplish this, it needs to identify important CPU characteristics such as the form factor, the clock speed, bus speed, as well as things like voltage settings, clock multiplier configurations, cooling requirements. So there are actually, you can see there are a lot of things that we should need to be take care. We should need to be know that before we are deciding to upgrade our CPU on that computer system. So recognize the different kinds of CPUs, recognize the different CPU fan attachments. So this is also depend on that. I mean, what type of CPU you are using. So based of that the processor you are having into your computer system, you need that this CPU fan or CPU cooling system. So that is why we need to identify the basic specification of different classes of CPUs or learning objects here. So that's why we should have to learn about this, that okay, how we can actually identify that what type of CPU we are having into a computer system. So if we are having the enough information with us, we'll be able to understand, okay, this is that this type of CPU. This type of CPUs are needed, this type of motherboards, and this type of compatibilities are needed actually to set up this CPU to that a particular motherboard. Not only that, but also that cooling system will come automatically with that the CPUs that we are going to be using to our computer system. Okay, so it is telling that in the following steps, review the knowledge of CPU specifications and then examine the CPU and fan attachment on a PC. So this is what the first step that what we're going to be doing is that a good tech will only not only learn the specification of different CPU chips, but will also master the use of reference tools such as the internet, manufacturers, website, product documentation, and reference books. A quick search of the web or motherboard manual will generally yield a full list specifications for a given CPU. So this is what it is trying to tell us, that I mean, if we are interested about that our computer hardware, so if you are interested to work with that the computer hardware system, if you are interested to work with that the as a PC technician, then you should have to know not only that your CPU's information. You should not only know that what the which type of processor or which type of motherboards or which type of hardware into you have into your computer system, but you need to know that the updates of that the different CPUs coming into the market. So to do that, actually you can take help of the different websites that you can gather that several informations from the different websites, that okay, what type of CPUs are currently into the market, and what are their specifications. So that may help you to know that updates of that market, that okay, which CPUs are currently available in the market and what are the specifications for that. So this is a table has been actually given to you, so that actually you can prepare this different CPU type, and you find out that the different informations for these CPUs. So like that, what type of package it is, that you can see that here the same name with the Phenom 2 and 2. So there are different models for the single type of processor. Okay, so it is coming with the different name, different family name, package name. So you should have to know that. I mean, this table has been given to you for the assignment, so that you can fill up these informations. What type of package they are, what type of clock speeds are there for this different processors, what is the FSB speed, that is front side bus, and what is that the L2 cache, how much L2 cache is there, and how much L1 cache also there, maybe you can add the number of cores, that okay, is a dual core or quad core processor or uniprocessor, so make the list. So it has the list has been given to you here in this document. They are not actually usually these are not that the recent one. Okay, so you can actually add some recent processors as well and place these package informations. So if you're doing so, then you're going to be have an idea that okay, how that the different models, generation by generation or model by model, that how the improvement is going on, how that speed is increasing for each of the purposes. So this is the part actually usually I have given for that assignment. So you can collect these informations by yourself and you can fill up them. Then you're going to be have a good information about the different processors on the market. Then the step 2, we are going to look at the CPUs pictured in 5.1. Make the note of the differences. In particular, look for the following. differing pin guard array or land grid array packages. So we have already learned about the CPU socket. Here actually we are talking about the CPU socket. Actually, that's not the CPU socket, but we are talking about. We know that every component of the computer system, right? That we are connecting. We know that there we are having the female connector and male connector. So we know that we have already talked about the CPU socket, and we know that the CPU socket that we type of the CPU socket we are having that PGA and LGA and ball grid array. So they are coming with the different outlook. They are coming with the different guide notches. Okay, so we should have to follow them. So in case of that the processor, so we have seen that the PGA, the pin grid array. So that look that this processor is going to be, I mean, this is a processor or CPU that is actually for the pin grid array CPU socket. So you can see that we are having this different pins here. Yeah, so now you can closely see that there are different pins are there. So these are the female connector actually that you should have to place inside of the PGA, the pin grid array CPU socket. So this is what I mean, and each of the CPU socket look that for the pin grid array that there is an arrow, and this is my ball grid. This is my another actually this is the same three, and this is the same thing. So in that you can see that I mean it does not understand that okay this is the pins because I mean it's taken the picture straight away, so that it's not understandable. These are actually the same processor, these three pictures. So here I mean this is the AMD processor, so you can see that I mean the different pictures. So it is showing that I mean how that a CPU pin with the pin connector, that how that the CPUs are look like for pin grid array, and this is showing for you that the LGA, the land grid array. So you can see check here that the notches here you are having a U-shaped notches, and here you are having an U-shaped notches. Also you are having a arrow key here. So when you are going to be install it onto your CPU socket, on that time you have to look after. You should have to take care of these notches. So this is what actually that guide notches that we are talking about. So in every processor, you are having a notch, and on motherboard in the CPU socket, you are going to be also see there a notch. So by following that the notches, you should have to place your CPU very carefully, because if you are trying to not following the notches and if you're trying to installing that the CPU with that the I mean different way, if you're trying to place the CPU inside of the CPU socket, it may happen that your CPU is going to be damaged. So it is quite dangerous. So that is why these notches are actually really important that actually you're following when you are actually installing that the CPU socket. Installing the CPU in CPU socket, you should have to be take care of the notches. So by seeing the notches, you are going to be understand that how I am going to be install my CPU into the CPU socket. So this is what we're going to do actually in the lab. We are having the different type of processors, like we are having in the I mean in the lab. We are having the pin grid array processors. We are having the LGA processors. So usually with the LGA processors, we actually usually practice it that okay how we can actually install or how we can actually remove that the CPU from our motherboard. That actually mainly we practice at that the lab, because it is a very I mean important factor that actually you know that the right procedures how to install or how to upgrade the CPUs into your PC. So if you do it once, then actually for others, I mean for other computers or other PCs, it is going to be easier for you that to understand how to install that the processor into that the CPU socket. Not only that CPU, but also that I mean all that the like I mean the heatsink, like that you are having the fan connector, and then the P4 P4 power connector. So for the CPU, so these are the things, these are the facts that actually you should have to know. So that actually we practice usually. So here Here it is finished the CPUs exploring that. I mean, we have learned that okay how that the CPUs look like, and there are many things like informations. If you're looking to that, I mean, each of the top of the CPU, when you're going to be uninstalled from your PC, then you're going to be get some informations onto that on the top of the CPU. So usually that here, I mean, we are using some glue, okay, to attach that our um, what is that? I mean, the heat sink. Okay, so when you are, remove that the CPU fan and the heat sink, then actually you'll be able to see on that the body of the CPU that okay what type of CPU it is, maybe the serial number, maybe that where it is manufactured, right, and what is that the year that has been actually released, what type of processor it is, that it is AMD or Intel, so that the different informations you are going to be get it like here also that you are having. Okay, so this that the discussions maybe I'm going early it will come. So now here the step three that it is talking about now that the CPUs that is coming with that the different heating system, like these are the fans actually, the both of them. So usually the AMD use this type of heat sink and the fan, and in case of Intel usually that is the round shape and this is the rectangular shape. So both of them actually, I mean doing that the same type of work, but they are having the different maybe the designs or architectures for that the CPU fan. So this is another cooling system, like this is known as the master cool. So this is actually a bit better technology than this that the A and B pictures you are seeing on. So here, I'm sorry. The step number four, we are saying that on the disassembled PC, look at the CPU and CPU and fan assembly. Make note that the type of CPU package and fan assembly. Also note the type of power connector used for the fan. It can be the Molex connector, it can be the 3 prolonged motherboard plug or none. Then replace the CPU into the anti-static bag and return the fan assembly to work surface. So this is what actually it is trying to tell to you that okay how you are going to be take care of that, I mean the CPU fan, or how you are going to be take care that the power different power connector like that the CPU fan with this type of cooling system, you don't maybe you do not need to plug any CPU fan, but in this type of cooling fan system you can see that there is a cable. So that the cable, we know that we are having the 15 CPU connector, CPU fan connector on the motherboard. So this that the cable on the cable that you are going to be get the female connector. Then the female connector it need to be installed into that the 3-pin CPU fan male connector on the board. So to run that the CPU fan. So this is what actually it is trying to tell that the what we are having. So it is talking about a different information that AMD has better power management, whereas the Intel is more power efficient. So we already learned it. I mean that uh, the power management that we are talking about, that is a different thing than that the power efficiency. So this is a different discussions actually when it comes when that I mean you are going to be study some of the manuals for that the better power management and better power efficiency. So how actually you are going to be utilize that your power system that you I mean that your cooling system into your on the top of your CPU, and that how it is going to be make your CPU better with the better cooling system. So here, the next one is that recognizing the CPU socket. So it is talking about in this lab you will identify various CPU socket. At the end of the lab, you will be able to recognize different kinds of CPU sockets and know which the CPU and know which CPUs require which socket. So this is already we have actually a bit got the ideas that we are having the three types of CPU sockets like LGA, PGA, and VGA. But here it is actually to show here on to deal with that the practically that okay how that a CPU socket with that the pin guitar look like. This is that the older one. I have seen this actually in my first desktop computer. I had that the PGA CPU socket. I can remember it that I mean it was like that. And this is also a PGA CPU socket. So this is that the LGA CPU socket. This is that the LGA CPU socket. So you should have to be, I mean, identify this type of CPU sockets from your motherboard itself. So I've already said you that in that the recent time that if you're buying a computer system or if you're buying a motherboard separately, then although most of the 90, maybe above 99, maybe the 99% motherboards, you will get that beside that the CPU, right? I mean on the board, beside that the CPU socket, it is written actually that what type of CPU socket it is. Is it LGA? Is it PGA? Is it BGA? So there is no PGA socket these days actually. All you know that. I mean that is that the backjutted CPU socket that the LGA. Sorry, pin grid array PGA. So these days actually most of the CPU socket we are getting or the motherboard that is actually that the uh, that is actually LGA land grid array. So that the land grid array CPU socket how it looks like. So with that the land grid array that this is the CPU socket on the motherboard. In somewhere maybe rectangular place if you're looking, somewhere you will see that it is written that LGA and the model number of the CPU socket. So this is really common these days that I mean you are going to be get in the newer motherboard easily that what type of CPU socket you are having on the board. I'm sorry. So it is trying to tell you here again that is for the assignment purposes that I mean what type of CPU socket they are. So find out the name of this CPU socket and just fill up this information that A which type of CPU socket it is, B which type of CPU socket it is, like that. Like it is a socket A PGA 462 MDF long and 64 CPUs. So like that you should have to write this all of the four CPU socket informations. And then you're having another this is that a matching table. You should have to match that okay which CPUs here that this is the CPUs type. There are 6 CPUs has been given with the 6 socket time, but that the combinations are not correct. So you have to find actually you have to find that okay which processor match with that the which type of socket. So there is a puzzles actually that you should have to be find out from the internet, and actually you are going to be draw that the puzzles with that the arrows like that. I mean I have shown like that. Okay, so that okay for this processor which type of CPU socket is going to be the right one. For this processors which type of CPU socket is going to be right one. So for all of them you should have to find it out. So this is also a part of assignment. And then it's coming about that removing and installing a CPU. Okay, so now it's come that I mean that the major part that I mean you should have to do into your lab practice. That in this lab you will practice removing and installing a CPU and CPU fan assembly. So yeah, so you should have to be know that what is the right procedure. That means the safety, right? And you should have to do it I mean safely and correctly. So that is what actually the most important fact. So yeah, with that I mean practically actually we see on the lab that how we are going to be remove or install that CPU into that the computer motherboard, onto that the computer motherboard CPU socket. So yeah, remove and install a CPU fan assembly, and that is also you should have to know you have to do safely and correctly. So that is the fact that the right procedures that actually we are going to be practicing to our lab. So this is that the fact it is telling that what are the materials actually you need to do this removing and installing a CPU. It's saying that this deassembled non-production PC. So you need a PC actually that maybe on where that maybe that the CPUs are installed already, CPU heatsink and that the CPU fan is installed already, or maybe they are actually they are with us for installing onto that the motherboard. In thermal paste, that is not actually what I was trying to tell. That I mean when you are going to be installed that the heatsink, so that glue, that is the thermal paste actually, that thermal paste we are using, placing into that the on the top of CPU, and then actually we place that the heatsink. So it is not only that trying to catching that the heatsink on the top of the CPU, but also it is helping. It is actually really cool material. Okay, so it is going to be give the CPU some sort of I mean power to reduce that the heat thermal paste. Actually, that is one. So this is what it's saying, that a small slotted screwdriver. Of course, that you maybe you need it, or maybe you are not, because with that the CPU socket, you can see that there is no need of, I mean, any screw. This there is no screw, so you can see that this is a kind of a locker is there. So you need to remove that the locker to actually to make this tray unlock. If you are removing this locker, then this on the top of it, this tray is going to be unlocked. So when that it is going to be unlocked, then that the, I mean, you'll be able to place that your CPU inside of the CPU socket, or actually, if the CPU socket is already there, you are going to be able to remove it from there on. So usually, actually, not needed the screwdriver, but sometimes it is needed if you are having this type of CPU cooler. Okay, so some of them are local like that. So in that case, actually, you need a screwdriver to actually remove that, I mean, locker so easily. But you should need to be very careful when you are going to be do these jobs. You should have to make sure that you are, I mean, your computer system is actually out of electricity. So you should have to unplug that, I mean, unplug that power cord from your power supply. So, and also that when you are going to be deal with that the screw, so I mean screwdriver, you should have to be careful that you are not hitting any place of the motherboard. So it is going to be quite dangerous. So you must need to be have some, I mean, must need to be patient with that. Your, I mean, cool and calm. Your system should need to be cool and calm to work with that when you are installing and uninstalling anything from that the computer motherboard. So that is what actually is saying, that why we need the screwdriver we have seen. So removing and installing the CPUs is one of the most nerve working tasks that new PC techs undertake. But there is no need to be panic. Take proper precautions to prevent ESD damage and handle the CPU and fan assembly with care. So this is the first time, I mean, of course, that the first time everything, whatever that you have done into your life first time, and whatever you are going to be do in your life first time, it is always going to be, I mean, nervous situations that actually you are going to be faced. So more you are going to be deal with the things, you are going to be actually very much, I mean, comfortable with to do task with something. So this is what also a thing, that first time when you're going to be practice it, you should need to be take care. You should need to be learned properly that, okay, how I'm going to be installed at the CPU, or how I am going to be uninstalled at the CPU from that the motherboard. So once, twice you are doing it, then you'll see that it's actually not a hard job. It's an easy job. But you should have to be, why you should have to be know it properly. Now, why should you have to practice it properly? Because you know that what I say, that if you are trying to give the CPUs not by following that notches, not by following that the guideline, you are installing that the CPU, it may happen that you are going to be damaged, not only that the CPU, but also that your CPU socket. So your motherboard is going to be need to be replaced on that time. And that is, you know, that is going to be very costly. That is going to be really very costly, I mean, for you. So that is why you should have to be, I mean, take care. You should have to be learn it first, that, I mean, how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to be do it. And that is the reason actually we do the practice in the computer lab with that the date computer. So that, I mean, if you, even though if you're doing some mistakes, I mean, it does not costly for that our lab. So that's why actually we use the date computers that the computers are not using anymore, or maybe that not running pieces we are having into that the lab. With that actually we do the practice. So yeah, that is also one thing he said, that as a warning, be careful not to touch any of the exposed metal contacts on either the CPU or on the CPU socket. So this is also, I mean, you should need to be very careful. I already said it, that, I mean, you need to be careful. I mean, for catching the CPU also there is a guideline that how you are going to be catch the CPU. So you should not touch on that the body of that the CPU. Okay, so you should not touch on that the body of the CPU. You should have to catch the with one finger. You are going to be catch it in this side, maybe in this side, or maybe in this side or in this side. You should have to be careful that you are not touching this part is fine. If you're touching this part, no problem. But you are not touching in this part is going to be much better. Okay, so that is what I mean. For catching that the CPU also you need, I mean, the guideline that okay how you are going to be catch the CPU, how you are going to be place it very nicely onto that the CPU socket. So that is also I mean guidelines are there. So if you're following those guidelines, if you're doing it nicely, slowly with the cool head, then everything is going to be all right. There is nothing worries. But if you're not, I mean, taking care of these issues, that I mean, okay, I can do this. I mean, if you're overconfident, then actually maybe it can hampers your system. So this is what it is trying to tell to you, that you should need to be careful, right? You are not touching that any metal contacts. Even that I mean it has not been said here. Even that the thermal paste we are talking about that we are going to be used on the top of the CPU, do not touch it with the I mean direct finger. Okay, so maybe it is not going to be good for your skin. It's not like that it is going to be burn your skin. No, but it is not good. I mean, they shouldn't to be make sure that you're not touching it, because if you're touching it with the finger, maybe that it can be not good for your skins. Okay, so that is what I mean. It is talking about that these warnings are need to be there. So it is talking about that using this deassembled PC, determine whether the process of reinstalling and removing the CPU and fan assembly will be easier with the motherboard on an anti-static mat or installed in its case. So it is talking about the reinstalling, right? Whether the process of reinstalling and removing the CPU and fan assembly will be easier with the motherboard on an anti-static mat. So it is they are suggesting that okay, when you are going to be uninstall that the CPU, that where you are going to be place it. Okay, uninstall processor, where you are going to be place it. So you should have to place it into a mat, on the mat, or maybe in a clean place that you should have to place. I mean, you should have to be careful that I mean where you're going to be keep your CPU, and then you should have to be ensure that I mean it is not going to be I mean it is not going to be I mean in a dry place. Okay, it should not be should need to be in a clean place, dry place, that it should have to be make sure if preferable. So reinstall the motherboard into the case before proceeding. And if it may find that it is easier to work with the stubborn fan assembly clamp if the motherboard is secured in the case. So this is talking about that okay, how you're going to be install or uninstall that the CPU fan. So if it is I mean if you're looking to that the step 2, it needs to be remove the fan assembly before removing the CPU from the CPU socket. So that is also another point. That is also another point that okay, how you are going to be uninstall that the CPU fan. So for that the different CPU fans you're seeing here, that we have seen that I mean with that the round shape, with that the rectangular shape, that the CPU fan we are having, actually they are having the different types of locking procedures. Usually that I mean in case of that the CPU fan of the Intel, so you can see that they have a here they are having a clip, actually 4 clip in the 4 side. Okay, so you should need to be rotated. There is an arrow sign is there anti-clock, or maybe that clockwise. There is an I mean locker is there, so you should have to be I mean first I mean unscrew with by following that the rotation. You should first need to be I mean unlock them, and then after unlocking all this the 4 lockers, then you should have to take that the CPU fan on the I mean you should need to be catch it, and you should have to take it out from that the CPU socket or from the motherboard. So this is actually the different motherboards. I mean different CPU fans are having the different locking system. Like this one that you are showing here, that it is showing here that this is actually a different locking system. So you should need to be take it out. I mean it was inside and it should need to be taken out. So if you're taking it out, then it is going to be actually I mean it is going to be actually unplugged. So that means you'll be able to take it out. So that you should have to know that I mean that is why he said that you should have to know that how to remove the CPU fan from that socket place. So that is it is talking about that I mean the way that I mean this one that using a screwdriver to remove a clip type CPU fan from its mount. So that is what actually it is talking about, that how you're going to be remove it. So you should have to know it first, that actually what type of CPU fan you are having onto your PC. And based on that, actually you are going to maybe in the CPU socket also. There is also like, I mean, with that the manual, that from the manual you will be able to get it, that okay, maybe for that your CPU specific manual is there, or maybe on the motherboard itself also you can see that actually what type of CPU fan is going to be fit on that the motherboard, right? You can see that some directions there you should have to study that okay how you're going to be remove that the CPU RAM, because if you are trying to, I mean, if you are trying to hurry with to uninstall this type of CPU fans, I mean, that has been fit on the motherboard, you can actually break down that the lockers. So these are the lockers. Usually when that the student practice, we are having this type of fan into our lab. When usually the student practice on that the lab, they break down this part of the, I mean, the pin. Most of the time, there is actually plastic type of material is there. So when they are not trying to installing it properly, on that time those plastics are broken. So if it is broken, then it is not going to be fit on the motherboard. So that is what I mean. It's really important that you know that how to unlock the CPU fan from that the motherboard, and how you are going to install it. So that is also, I mean, some guidelines are there that you should have to be first see from the manual, and then you should have to be learn out, or maybe you can take the help from the internet as well, that actually how to remove this fan. So if you're looking at, and then you're going to be actually know that okay, this is the way that I have to unlock it. So once you do it, second time you do not have any problem. So that is what actually it is. It is need to be take care that when you are installing or uninstalling that the CPU fan from the PC. So this is actually, it is telling that it is why it is dangerous. That I mean, it is talking about that it can be discovered that releasing a fan clip takes away from force then it wants to apply to anything so near a delicate CPU chip. Realizing this in advance, it can be sure to support itself and position the screw driver carefully to minimize the possibility of it slipping off and gogging something. So that is what actually this I said to you, that I mean when you are doing it, you should need to be cool and with a cool head, because I mean if you're making something that with the hurry here, then it can happen that your screwdriver is going to be slip and going to be hit some of the chip on the motherboard. So that can be actually quite dangerous. And CPU fan assembly will have the thermal paste reside on the surface that are previously touching. Do not reuse the thermal paste. Apply a fresh layer when reinstall the CPU fan using a clean, lint-free cloth. Carefully wipe the thermal paste residue from the CPU and fan assembly, and then place the fan assembly on an anti-static surface. So that is what actually it is trying to tell, that when you are going to be install that the CPU fan, on that time you can actually use a tissue also to I mean take that the older thermal paste from the top of the CPU, and it is telling that when you're installing it, you need to use this new thermal paste. So you should if there is a proper way to actually do it. So that is actually here they are telling. So number step 3 that it is talking about, before proceeding, notice the CPU's orientation notches. All CPUs have some form of orientation notches. I already said to you that you must have to be follow that, I mean the guideline that the notches that actually for installing that the CPU on the CPU socket. So this is actually, you should have to find out that before proceeding, notice the CPU's orientation notches. All CPUs have some form of orientation notches. So this is telling some of the information that actually it is LGA type, or it's a PGA type, or which type of socket, or which type of notches are there. So you should have to gather all the informations before you are going to be install it onto that your CPU socket. Okay, so this you should have to take care. So yeah, so this is the thing also I have already said to you, that on the top of the CPU you are going to be have the information which what is the CPU information printed on the chip packet. So that is the on the top of the CPU that we have seen here, that the informations are written on the top of the CPU, right? So you should have to be write the informations from here on that. Okay, what are the informations are written on the top of the CPUs? Okay, then it is talking about that. So this is that I was talking, that how you are going to be catch hold the CPU only by the edges. not on that the body of the CPU should have been touch. So that is actually it is talking about. So reinsert the CPU with the correct orientation, lock down the GIF lever and reattach the fan, and now remove the fan assembly and the CPU again. Practice this a few times to become comfortable with this process. After finish practicing, reinsert the CPU for the last time and be sure to apply a thin film or paste, thermal paste onto the square in the center of the top of the CPU before placing the fan. Now reattach the fan assembly. Don't forget to plug the fan back in. So it may be possible to leave CPU and fan assembly installed on the motherboard. Place the motherboard on anti-static map. Optionally, if we install the motherboard in the case, leave it as an assembled. So this is what it is talking about, that all that the installing informations that are disassembled information. So removing and installing of CPU, that actually a guideline actually has been discussed into this part. So now the cooling CPU for cooling the CPU. Let me check that attendance. The automation is not working. Automation server is down. Till now it's not coming. No, it's not working. Okay, so it is talking about now the cooling CPU. So we are going to be learning out that you will identify the strengths and weakness of the three CPU cooling options. So actually there are several, but here we are talking about three shipping: OEM fans, third-party fans, and liquid cooling. So you will be able to learn. You will be able to determine the cooling needs of your CPU, decide on the form of cooling to use for your needs. Yeah, you know that. I mean, what is that the use of that CPU fan? Of course, that we are all know that. I mean, the CPU is actually getting too much, producing too much heat. Of that, so to reduce that the heat, actually we are using that the cooling system. The cooling CPU is one of the main important factor for your computer system, because if it is becoming too hot, then it can happen that your CPU is going to be crashed. So that is why the cooling system is very important for the CPU. So that right cooling system is needed to be actually there with the CPU, so that actually it can become cool, and it can actually help your CPU to work properly. So it's saying that access to a working computer with internet access, a notepad, and freestyle to document the specifications. Okay. After installing that the CPU, make sure it's properly cooled. Too. Someone new to that the CPU cooling business might be tempted to think that CPUs come from the factory with a defined operating temperature. This is not the case. The operating temperature depends tremendously on the way how it is set up for cooling the CPU. A far more reliable measurement is power consumption. The amount of power a CPU generates. CPU power consumption is measured with the watts, and which most stop CPUs consume is excess of 100 watt. So these levels of power consumption generates a tremendous amount of heat. If the heat is not taken away from the CPU by some form of cooling, the CPU will be being overheat. So that is actually I was talking about. If a CPU gets too hot, it will automatically shut down itself down to prevent permanent damage. So this is what you can understand, that the cooling system for that the CPU, how much important it is. Right? So I was talking about that it is going to be crashed, so it is going to be damaged. So therefore, it needs to be provide some form of cooling device on the top of the CPU. Determine that the cooling needs a CPU, and decide on the form of cooling to use for needs our learning objectives here. So the three most common types of CPU coolings are original equipment manufacturer OEM fans, and third-party fans, and liquid cooling system. So each of the following steps give an opportunity to investigate of these options for a particular CPU. For the purpose of this exercise, pick up any single modern CPU as a sample CPU. Use this to find the proper cooling devices. So individual CPUs are most commonly sold retail in the retail box. This includes both the CPU and OEM fan. Look online for third-party fan solutions. and these are the different manufacturers who are producing the CPU fan. So this is actually a table has been given for the assignment purposes to tell that okay, some manufacturers names of that the cooling system and not cooling system, actually the uh, liquid cooling. It is mentioning only for the liquid cooling. So what are the manufacturers, what are the model name of those model that you have found from the internet, and what are the prices of them, and what are the benefits of them. So if you're listing some of them, then you're going to have some ideas about this liquid cooling system, as well as you're having uh, yeah, you want to say something?
Sir, you have mentioned so many models, but I think only one company making that, like 3M Novak. So only one information is enough for the liquid cooling.
No, you at least list some of them, like 3 to 5, right? So then it is going to be, I mean, you can understand, you will be able to understand that what is the differences actually, that the benefits, that the prices, right? So you're going to have some ideas.
Yes, sir.
At least three, minimum three. If you're doing that's good.
Actually, I found one. That's why I was saying that maybe one or two companies could happen available in market.
Well, you are going to be. I mean, if you're searching it in the internet, you'll get more. Yeah, don't worry.
Okay, sir.
Using the same manufacturer listed in the step three, so it says that this is not for the liquid. I'm sorry, this is for the normal fan. Okay, list of some benefits with others. So this is talking about the third party, and this is for the liquid actually. So using the manufacturer list in the step three, try to do some research in the liquid cooling. Why would anyone want to use the liquid cooling on a CPU? So it is that the part that you're going to be insert that okay, what is about the liquid cooling? Okay, why we need the liquid cooling in the computer system? So that is actually here you are going to be fill up. And this is the normal fan. This is for the normal fan, this table. And this is for the liquid. Okay, so it is telling that using the same manufacturer list in the step three, try to find liquid cooling options for selected CPU. The most liquid cooling options are either bolt on, they can be added on an existing case or case integrated. They are built into that the system case. So that is actually you should have to find out some of these cooling systems. That what is that the procedures, bolt on or case, or what is the price, what is that the model number, what is the manufacturer, who is the manufacturers. So this is the part here, and then you are having that, I mean, the exploring CPU specification, which CPU jet. Okay, I think we have almost done. Let's have a 5 minutes break. Okay,
Okay, sir.
yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm here now. How about you?
Yes, sir.
All of you are here now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the automation still it's not working. Okay, the automation server is down. So it is going to be better that if you are writing that your name and ID into the chatting box, name and ID. Okay,
Okay, sir.
so you do it one by one, and then I'm going to be place your attendance on that automation when it is going to be active. If you know, no need, just place that. It's fine. So, Ashik, you are telling that to, I mean, I have to make that all the students I should have to remove,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
So it is need to be done one by one.
Yes, sir. Need to go through one
It's
by
a
one.
tough job
It needs time.
for the student. Right, it needs time.
Or so we can do
See,
one thing. We can
yeah,
leave the page or group.
yeah. If
It's
I'm,
a
yeah, you
Sir,
can also,
the group
right,
chat.
right. You can do that, right? So you just leave the group. I think it's going to be better.
yes, it will
Then,
be easier for you, sir, if you leave the
right,
group.
right. Otherwise, 40 students one by one. I mean, if I'm making leave, then it's take time. So maybe I think you just simply click on leave the group. Please do it now itself. Okay.
Yes, sir. Done.
please, all of you, please take the link from that the Facebook group. I'm going to be share that your lecture notes and all everything into that the Google Classroom from now on. So make sure that you are keeping that the link with you, the Google Classroom. So and you keeps, I mean, the updates, right? So check. I mean, I'm going to be tell you that before when I am going to be upload something, but it is better that if you always keep look after on that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, now total 26 members still there. So please take the leave. I'm waiting for that. First, I want to confirm that that, I mean, nobody is there into this group. And one of you, please, I mean, just post a message into your messenger group that, I mean, we are not going to be use the Facebook group anymore, and we are going to, from now on, we are going to get all the information from that Google Class room. So please join there, right? So one of you, please, have you done this already into your own messenger group? You have a messenger group, I know that. Have you done it already?
Yes, sir. I'm just informing.
Yeah, why I'm saying is that because not all the students are actually here. Okay, some of the students, maybe they are going to be surprised by seeing that why that, I mean, there's no people on that the group. Okay. So if you're giving this information, so they are going to be get it and they are going to be able to join into that the Google Classroom. Did I upload that the last CSC 348 experiment? The BIOS and CMOS?
Sir, it would be better to upload all the stuff in the classroom again.
No, sir, I think not, sir. You didn't.
Yeah. 347
I think, okay, I'm going to be doing that the BIOS and CMOS motherboard you have already got, no?
Yes, sir, we have motherboard in now, sir.
Yeah, so actually that for the motherboard there is another file is there. Actually that is telling us that okay, how we are going to install the motherboard on the cache on the case, okay, the CPU case. So how we are going to be installed, there is actually detailed instructions are there. So I'm going to be upload that one also, so that actually you can study it. So this is also a, I mean, task that actually we do in the lab, that okay, how we are going to, so this is actually the mounting, right? Just, I mean, you should, there are actually some screw place up there, so we should have to place that the CPU based on that the mounts that we are having onto that the CPU case, and we have to place the motherboard and we have to screw it. Okay, so this is, I mean, detailed information is actually there onto the file, but we are going to be do it when we are going to be do that the assemble and deassemble job on the lab. That time we are going to be learn it A to Z, that how we are going to be actually complete all the components, how we are going to be install into that CPU case, how we are going to be connect them all. So we are going to be practice it actually to the lab. And what Ashik said, that I mean, I think it's not necessary to upload all the files, because the files I have given to you, those files already, I think, with you, isn't it? That you have downloaded all those files already.
Sir, only have
If I'm not wrong.
first terms on.
First terms.
Yes, sir.
So
Sir, I just got slide. The rest of the slide I didn't get, sir.
yeah, I think that
All the
the lecture
slides
three, lecture three also uploaded onto that the group. So you did not download it. the CPU, that 3D class you are doing it?
Yes, sir. Slide is not work in my. That's why I say about that.
So is it okay that if I'm only uploading the lecture number 3 from CSC 347 and that lab files that like the experiment number 2, 3 and 5. So is it okay that if I'm uploading them or I should have to upload everything?
In our group, lecture number 1, 2, and
Russell, I mean your speech, I mean not completing. I think because of the network issues. So okay, I think I'm going to do it again. No problem. I'm going to be upload everything.
Sir, that will be better, sir.
Okay. So now come back to that last part, the exploring CPU specification with CPU JAT. Okay, so this is the software I said already to you that to download it into your computer system. So with that, actually, you are going to be able to get the detailed information of your desktop systems. So this is what actually it is talking about, that you should have to be install it, and then it is talking about that okay, the material unit for this lab. So CPU jar is actually installed on our lab, all the lab pieces. So it is talking about that other things that you need a word processor or spreadsheet application to facilitate the documentation. So this is what actually if you are just run that the CPU jet into your system, then you are going to be find it. It is telling that how you will install it, the CPU jet into your computer system. And if you open the CPU jet, then it is going to be look like that. So you can see here that we are in several options like CPU. So it is giving you that the CPU's detailed informations. You are having the caches of the CPUs inside. Remember, the caches are going to be always inside of the CPU in the recent time. And the main board informations, that actually what type of main board you're having, so you can get detail if you're going to that tab of your CPU jet. Then you are having the informations of the memory, that actually what type of memory you're having, how much memory size. Then that the SPD, that is also related to that your memory. Then the graphics, what type of graphics you are having into your computer system, that you're going to be get the informations, range and about. So it may be varies, motherboard to motherboard, computer to computer, it may varies. It may have that the different less options than this that what you're seeing on the screen. So this is the information is actually you need for this your CPU, that you can see that the processor has having that, I mean this is the processor name. From that the PC I have taken this screenshot. That is actually, you can see that it is inside the Intel Pentium processor. So the Intel Pentium processor name is this, and code name is this, IP bridge, and then that the next TDP is that the 55 watts, and then the socket information, that what type of socket, CPU socket, that I mean you install this CPU, and then some other information, the technology, core voltage specification, what type of specification, how much speed you can see here, and the family number, extension family number, and then that the model information and the other informations, and then instructions, what type of instructions it use, and then the clock speed, the clock information. So it is so these are the informations are telling that how much faster your CPU is. And then you're having the different level caches information, what type of level you're having. You can see that L1 data, L1 instructions. So this is the unified cache that actually we have explained into your theory class, and the level 2 cache and level 3 cache. So ports, number of ports are 2. That means this is a dual core processor. And then threads are 2, and then the selection of processor is only one processor. That's why actually it is dead. So this you have to do, and you should have to actually write down that all the informations from there on. And there are some of that blank filling the gaps that actually has been asked you to fill up. So for this that microprocessor experiment, that what we have learned it out from this file, that you should have to be prepare an assignment. and that the assignment is going to be by following these all those steps, the 5 steps. You can simply follow that this document and go accordingly with your information. So you should have to fill up these informations. Then what type of CPUs you are having. So if you are having the LGA, right, you can just keep your outlook of that the processor from collecting on the internet that you can use them, and you can give the informations, and you can fill up those all the blanks you are having into this file. You can talk about the different. I think you can talk about the different CPU socket CPUs as well into your assignment. That a ball grid array, then pin grid array, then that LAN grid array. So you can keep them all, and then you can tell that which one you are having into your system with the name and informations. Then you are talking about the different cooling system, and then you are telling which cooling system you are having into your computer system. Then the CPU socket. So you're talking about that the different CPU socket, you're filling it up, and then you are matching that the CPU sockets, and then you're telling that which type of CPU socket you are having into your desktop, and then removing and installing a CPU. So you can collect that CPU installation process from your motherboard manual. So you can tell step by step that how you're going to install your CPU socket. So there are layouts usually that the layout you will get, I mean, with the pictures that okay, what is the step by step procedures for installing that the CPU, right? So please, I mean, collect that the layout from that the internet or maybe the manual for your system, and actually place it and explain that how you're going to be install and remove your processor, including that your fan and your it's thing, that how you're going to be do it, step by step procedures. So give your CPU's top informations on it, so you can get it. If you know that what type of CPU you are having into your computer system, so simply if you are searching it in the Google, then you are going to be get that the informations on the top of the CPU. And so cooling, about the cooling, so tell that what type of cooling systems are there and what type of cooling system your CPU, I mean, in your desktop PC or in your PC you are having, that give it and fill up these informations, and last of all that, I mean, from your CPU jets, I mean, take a snapshot of your CPU jet information, so that the CPU and caches, and whatever informations you're seeing here, those informations, write them one by one and tell that okay, this is that the name of the processor after writing it, and then code name, this is the code name of the processor IB bridge. So each of the options, what are they, right? What are the meaning of them? Within one line, one sentence or two sentences, write them. Okay.
So should it be handwritten also in Word file, sir?
Sir, isn't it okay if we just fill out this form?
Okay, is it clear that how you are going to be do the assignment?
We'll open it in a doc file, then we can write on it.
Yeah, I don't mind. I said you that none of the assignment you need to write with the handwriting. So you can do it by your own, I mean, with the Word file. So it is going to be faster, right? You can save your time, but you have to make sure that you are not sharing your soft copy with the other students. If I see that, I mean, your assignments are same, then both of you are going to be get 0. You understand what I say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I mean, this time all the assignments you're going to be do, that is with the Microsoft Word. I mean, you can just copy paste the informations. I don't mind, but put that the correct informations. Make sure that I mean, step by step you are searching the informations and you are doing it according to your pieces. If you're doing it, then actually you're going to be learn it. If you're not doing it this way, then actually you're not going to be learning. Okay, so learning is that the main concern here. If you're doing it step by step with your PC, then I think there is not going to be any problem. You're going to be learn it properly. And when you're going to be deal with that, I mean, the practically when you're going to be do it into the lab, on that time you'll find it that it is very easy to do the things. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Is there any questions regarding this assignment? Yeah. So,
Yes, sir. What will be our submission deadline, sir, in this assignment?
I think you can. I think that you are pending that two of your assignments. What was the deadline for them?
First
So
one
it is
was
13 March, sir.
13th.
13 March, sir. Motherboard and sir BIOS.
Okay, so I think that then these assignments you're getting the microprocessor. It submit it on the 27th after 2 weeks.
Okay, sir.
27, sir.
Yeah,
Okay,
that is
sir.
also going to be the Saturday. So 13th you're submitting, then 27. I mean from that date exactly 15 days, 27th March. So you can actually submit your processor microprocessor assignment on that day. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so I mean, make sure that I mean you are not trying to I mean send that the assignment in the different dates. Make sure that the dates have been decided, the deadline has been decided. You are submitting your assignments on that the date, given date, and meet the deadline. And two things you should have to confirm. One thing, first thing is that you are doing it by yourself for your PC, and you are submitting it on time. And if you do not understand, maybe some of the students, if you're confusing that how you're going to be prepared the assignments, discuss with your classmate. Your classmate is going to be verbally tell you that okay, you can do this way, do that way. So you can get the verbally directions, but do not ask to your friend, please provide your soft copy. It is going to be easier for me to prepare. No, if you are doing this, I mean, if you're sharing your soft copy, definitely that I mean, that student got the soft copy will not do anything. Simply just he or she is going to be change the name and ID if she can, he or she can remember. Sometimes students also forget to change that the name and ID also. Get my point or not? So you should have to make sure that anyhow you need with any cost that you are not sharing your soft copy assignment soft copy with others. And if I'm finding it that I mean the both assignments are same, then both of you are going to be get zero. So why unnecessarily you are going to be share your file and will get zero while you could get 10 out of 10? These assignments are really important for learning about this the computer hardware. I mean when I am doing this lab class with that the other students till now that I mean the students are have done this course with me. I have guaranteed them from the beginning that if you are doing these assignments by yourself, then you are going to be have a complete idea about that the computer hardwares. I mean how you are going to be deal with that the technical issues, troubleshootings, or how you are going to be assemble or disassemble a new PC or maybe that disassemble I mean your PC. Okay, so I always guarantee them. I mean it is a hard work to do that the assignments the students do. They do not like it, but at the end they get happy that no, I know this now. That I mean how to deal with a PC, and this is that the only course that actually you can get about that. I mean complete informations that okay how you are going to be do the assemble and disassemble of a computer system. So these are the assignments you are doing. You must have to confirm that you are doing it by yourself. You are not sharing your file soft copy with the others, and you are submitting your assignments on time on the date, not earlier time on from the date, or not after that time from the date. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is there anything else that anything else for that this class?
What if the assignment format is same but the description is different? Then it would be okay.
Again?
Sir, what
Mamada?
if the assignment format is same but the description that we are adding is different? That would be okay, sir.
Inshallah, fucky was Chinta.
Yeah, so I say that you should need to be, I mean, follow with your computer information, right? There are some for the microprocessor assignment. There are some informations it is going to be fill up, needed to be fill up, and it need to be followed. But with that, you should have to be tell that what, like you are starting with that your CPU outlook, right? So what type of CPU are having? So that information will come into your assignment. Do you understand? Then what type of CPU, all the CPU socket fill in the gaps you're going to be do, information you're going to be give. Then what type of CPU socket you are having, that the information you need to give. Do you understand that? So what is going to be installing procedure of your CPU into that your CPU socket, so that your information will come. Your computer, based on that your CPU and CPU socket, the information will come. So this way you should have to progress. The CPU jet, that is based on that you are going to be take the snapshot of your pieces information. Get me or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Then I mean, if you're not clear about something, always ask the questions like Mahmuda. That is the good thing to do. I mean, make it clear that you have confusion.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, in our previous lab class, you told us to submit our assignment through email. Sir, now we also get the second assignment. Sir, we should submit this assignment also through email.
Yeah, of course. All the assignments you must be submit through the email. And one thing I think I did not give you a single assignment. I think I have given you two assignments, right?
Yes, sir.
One is about motherboard, another one is that does BIOS and CMOS.
BIOS. Yes, sir.
Right,
BIOS.
right. Yeah, so do it accordingly.
Okay,
Do it
sir.
accordingly.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, what will be our email subject, sir?
ML subject is going to be the CSC 348 assignment. Give you serial number. Right?
Okay, sir. Can we send both assignment in one attachment, sir?
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
sir.
of course, that you have to do. Do not try to give that the two email, please. I mean, if you are having that the two assignments need to be submitted on the same day, then do not use the two emails. Just simply, I mean, a single email is going to be enough. Right there, assignment number 1 and 2. You understand that? Assignment 1 and 2, and then your serial number and your section. Right? CSC 348 section.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please. I mean, try to make sure that you are doing it with the single. One thing I did not understand. Have you given your name and ID into the chatting section, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I already give you.
Yes,
It
sir.
looks like that, I mean, it is going to be less than 30. Okay, if you have not done it, then please do it now itself. If you did not write your name and ID, if you have done it, you do not need to do it again. But if you did not write your name and ID till now into that the chatting section, please do it. Otherwise, you're not going to be get your attendance.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Ashim.
Most of the assignments are based on the desktops, but I use a laptop. In that case, I couldn't find any picture of my motherboard by searching in the Google. Sir, what can I do now?
Yes, this is actually a problem the students face. I mean, if you have not the desktop computer with you, then what you're going to be do? So if you are actually trying to do these assignments with that your laptop computer, then it is going to be a big problem, because the motherboard manual for the laptop, it's really difficult to find. You understand that? I mean, for any desktop computer, you'll find that the PDF format of the manual. But for the laptop, you'll not find it out about the manual about the motherboard. And also, the laptop motherboard components are a bit different. You can understand that the laptop is a slim has a slim system unit. So that the graphics card you are having, that the RAM you are having, processor you are having, they are actually with the different shapes and different models. So that is why it is actually, I mean, my suggestion, I always tell to that the students, do not try to do the assignments for the laptop. But you can do it. If you want, you can do it. But it is with your own risk that you will find that the information or not. But if you are not finding the information, then do not tell me that, sir, I did not get the information to do that the assignment. If you're telling that, then I'm going to give you 0. Do you understand that? So what is that the solution for that? I think that if it is happening that you do not have the desktop, maybe your friend has. Maybe friend means your relative has. Right? So it's not like that your classmates. Do you understand that? So collect motherboard system information that your friend has, or maybe your family member has. So then actually you can take that the help from that from that the him. So you can tell that, okay, I mean, to give that the some of the informations that you require to do these assignments. Do you understand that? And I say it, that all the assignments you're doing, all the assignments you're doing for the computer hardware, that should need to be for the same PC. If you are doing the BIOS and CMOS for your PC, if you are doing motherboard for my PC, if you are doing that the processor for your friend PC, then I mean this is, I mean, completely waste of, I mean, time. Okay, if you want to learn it, then you should have to be do all that the assignments from by considering the same PC. Get my point or not? So otherwise it is, I mean, it is not going to be useful if you're not doing that all the assignments for the same PC. If you're doing it for the same PC, then actually it is going to be useful. Then you're going to be learning properly that, okay, how the things are going to be happen. And if you are not doing it, that if you are doing it for that the multiple PCs, then I'll be able to catch it easily, because each and every assignments are interlinked with each other. So that the motherboard assignments you are giving to me, with that actually I'm getting all the information that actually what type of your CPU socket you are having, what type of RAM you are having, what type of processor you are having. So if I'm seeing that you are giving that processor motherboard processor assignment, if you're giving that the other CPU socket information, you'll be easily caught that, okay, you are not following the same PC, or maybe you're copying others. So that means you're going to be get 0. Get my point or not?
Yes, sir.
So make sure that, I mean, you are selecting a single PC. It can be your PC, it can be your friend PC that not in this class. I don't want to see that actually your assignment and your classmate assignments are same. Get my point? It's not actually possible. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have kept your record for the attendance. Just make a file, keep it with me. So when this is going to be work on the automation, I'm going to be put your attendance. Let me check for the last time that it's working or not. I think it is not. Let me check it once again for the last time. No, it's not working. Okay, is there anything else? Any other questions? Any other comments?
No, sir.
Okay, then I think we have done it for today. Thank you very much, and take care. See you into the next class.
So have a
Thank
good
you, sir.
Allah Hafiz.
Yeah, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks a lot.
Assalamu alaikum.